Good evening, everyone. I would like to thank my friend Chirag and others in BCA to give me an opportunity to be speaking at this occasion. Um I think, as the topic of the day states about interchangeable roles. So across my career and about spanning over 3 decades, today, as I stand here as being the Chief Operating Officer of Geo Financial Services. I have actually, in the last 3 decades, worked as in the profession for about 15 years, as well as I worked in the industry for the balance 15. So it's been equal sort of experience there. Now, the question, it was not 15 plus 15 plus. It has been, earlier, as we know, all chartered accountants have to do 3 years of articles. So it started with 3 years articles, followed by about 4 years in a medium-sized firm. Uh, then shifted to the Big Four. After that, got an opportunity to work with ICICI Bank, which was a growing bank at that point in time. Worked for ICICI Bank, the entire group, for about 15 years. After that, came back to the profession, was with EY for about 5 years, and then moved on to State Bank of India, which again was in the government sector, and now I'm with Geo. In the meantime, when during my career, have had a very close association with the institute as well as with BCH society. Sort of doing a lot of contributing in first, to various write-ups, and then actually coming and speaking on various seminars of both the esteemed institutes. The question which is always asked to me, and maybe that is what is one of the questions that would be in your mind, is what is better, the practice or uh, or the industry, and why the shift? So for me, clearly, as I was talking earlier, and I was speaking to the esteemed panelist just before we came in, I think it is not one above the other, or what is better and what is not. It actually is dependent on two things. Where does an individual look at himself or herself, and what are the skill sets that you have and that you want to, sort of achieve going forward, and what does the market opportunities or the opportunities that you have at a given point in time. Frankly speaking, I have to be very, very brutal and honest with you. I always wanted to set up something on my own. I never wanted to work for anybody else. But a large part, or substantially the whole of my career, I ended up working for somebody else. But that's how things are. But at the same time, the only thing I did differently, and I think, I mean, frankly speaking, at some point in time, I didn't even know what industry was, what practice was. I came from a family where, there was no chartered accountant. And it was very difficult to, even gauge that there would be a Big Four, there would be an industry, what would be a career progression. In fact, when I started my article somewhere back in 1991, there was not even a formal position of a chief financial officer or no chartered accountant. I'm very sure there are many people of my batch and my seniors sitting here who would agree that at that point in time, the only thing when a person tried to do chartered accountancy was to practice, either run practice more like as a tax consultant or as an auditor. And even the practice was restricted to auditing and tax practice, and very few of the practitioners did, say, international taxation or other practices like which is prevalent today. So I, like any other individual, started my career where, thinking that I would, end up into a practice. I was not even aware how would I go, where would you go. I started having opportunities across. I saw those opportunities, but the only thing which I did, and you will be very surprised to know, I, whenever I changed or whenever I took up an opportunity, it was based on that point in time. What was good for me at that point in time, and not look at what would happen 5 years down the line or 10 years down the line. That is quite different from what all management studies happen today. I was only practical. If somebody looks at my career, it says, wow, what a planned character, chota firm, medium-sized firm, going to Big Four, going to industry, coming back to Big Four, and again going to the largest bank in the country, done it all, looked at the public sector, looked at the private sector. So it was a well-planned career, but actually the reality is nothing was planned. I did my articles, and trust me, when my friends, when I started doing my CA, I was never good in studies. Let me tell that to you upfront. So I wanted to be a cricketer in my life. So, that's what I played cricket in my college. Was a, vice captain equivalent of my team. By the time, we graduated, I couldn't get selected. That time there was only the Ranji Trophy. There was no IPL or anything, so you had to play for one city. So I couldn't get selected for the Bombay Ranji Trophy team. So like usual, those days, I don't know how, but those days, all college students had a lot of time with their hands, so that we used to meet every evening at one corner of the gully that we stayed in. So we met there, and college results had come. I don't know, somehow I scored a first class, .60% in my TY BCom. And one of my friends who had, again, who played cricket with me, who was 1 year senior to me, but had got what I said, golden second class at exactly 45%. So he guided me to do CA. He said, "Ki boss, tera first class aaya hai, and if you are getting a first class, you can at least clear CA Inter in the next 3-4 years. And if you clear CA Inter, you'll get a salary of 4,000 rupees. So with that, I started doing my CA, not even believing that I'll complete CA. The next step was, where do I do my articles? Didn't know anybody. So one of my college friends came and told me, I have got, I'm doing articleship with a small firm, and the stipend as against the standard 225 rupees was 300 rupees, and you had Saturday, Sunday off as holidays. And that's how I started my career, and there was absolutely no planning. Incidentally, as luck would have it, and I managed to clear my CA Inter in the second attempt. First attempt I cleared first group, second attempt I cleared my second group. And that's really when reality struck me, and I said, I had looked at some companies, I had looked at our principal partner who used to who used to be like our idol at that point in time. And I can take his name. Mr. Mukundem Chitle was the first firm where I did my articles. And he was really idol for me at that point in time and for all of us. And, at that point in time, and let me tell you, even today, I thank him for being instrumental in, filling up the basics in me for where I am today. Because at that point in time, that was the changeover what was happening within me. And to get to the seriousness of studying hard, get to the seriousness to say that your hard work will pay off is something which I started there, particularly in the CA course. And there were two things my father always taught me, right from the day, I remember, or I think, he always used to tell me, work as hard as possible and be honest. If you follow these two principles in life, success will, always be there. Or even if you don't get success, you'll never be disheartened, because these are the two things we should always follow. So given this thing and the people I met, I think that was the turning point of my career after cleared my inter, which gave me the confidence that I can definitely become a chartered accountant and work from there on. Things went on smoothly, 3 years of articles. Fortunately or unfortunately, I ended up doing a lot of bank audits, and that's how banking got into me. After that, due to some family connections, I got a call saying that there was a medium-sized firm who wanted, no, and I was giving my final exams, wanted semi-qualified at that point in time. And that's how I joined, and then KPMG happened. It's actually when I joined KPMG, I suddenly realized that, the world is quite big and one has to do at, and somehow at that point in time, international accounting sort of interested me. And I don't know why, somehow I liked reading. I used to do a lot of reading at that point in time, and US GAAP was like something new, a lot of accounting standards. That interested me, and after that I started, you know, reading more about it. The other principles, and things kept on happening on me. I joined ICICI Bank, trust me, not thinking what I would get in the future. But, there was, at that those point in time, the bank used to give staff quarters. I mean, residential houses to stay. And my father used to, it was close to the place where I stayed, and my father used to go there and he used to like that staff quarters. He said, these are so beautiful, and he always used to go for an evening walk there, stand by that building and come back. Somehow, I don't know why, when ICICI Bank came to me and I said, wow, if I can get a place to stay in this building, I should join this bank. I had no clue at that point in time what the bank was, what the future had in me, whether I would be successful or not. I joined the bank only for that reason. And then, again, the ability to doing hard work, reading hard, understanding US GAAP, understanding what accounting was good. And the bank was growing, and bank was entering into various products. They needed a good accountant to be there, and somehow I fitted the job exactly. And for the next 8 years, I got 8 continuous promotions in the bank every year, which, and when I moved on, I was one of the CFOs of ICICI Securities. So in 2004, I was appointed as CFO of ICICI Bank. And for the last 20 years, I've been CFO. In the last 6 months only, I've moved on to CEO to do something more than what the CFO does. So the only thing which I did correct, and I think what gave me an advantage in the industry was the learnings which I had while I was, auditing. When you're in the profession, where you're in the audit, you look across various entities. You look across the entire industry, you learn. I learned from everyone I met. As I said, my first principal or principal partner in the firm which I did articles was an ideal. There were many ideals which I made during my career. Kept on learning from them, kept on working hard. The other part sometimes in when I reached midlife, and suddenly the new concept came in at that point in time, which was work-life balance. And, I used to work crazy hours at that point in time, and everybody started saying that, you should have some work-life balance in your this thing. You can't just be working without any life balance. And that time I used to think, with the sort of humble middle-class background that we have come in, अगर life enjoy करने लग लिया तो काम कब करूँगा, काम नहीं किया तो, both was very tricky. But again, as luck would have it, one of the senior professionals at that point in time, and we were having a conference like this, and somebody sort of asked a question at that point in time, saying that, how do you manage work-life balance? And that person, who was the MD of ICICI Bank at that point in time, clearly came and told us, is work, make life, and then balance. That was something that stuck into me so closely that I decided, yes, I need to make my life first and then balance. So, and that gave me these 3 words I still remember and still keep on telling my juniors or my sons who both are doing CA, to say that, boss, it's just work-life balance from day one may not work. You first work, make life, reach a particular position in your society, and then, seem to balance. We as Indians have a basic core values within us which we shouldn't forget. And, that comes naturally to us, and which should come naturally to us. If we are doing that well, work-life balance should come naturally to you. And that's what I've kept. And my stint in the profession, has always helped me to go back to the industry with much more rigor and much more knowledge. So for me, strictly speaking, working in a profession or working in a practice has given me more exposure. So every time I changed, I got a good exposure. And then, I was also talking to one of my very close friends just before, who's from EY, Mr. Vijay Manyar, before I came in, and we were, actually thinking, talking about, what differently did I do in EY and what was uh, the difference there. And when I really looked back at my sort of a tenure or my sort of there in EY, it was clearly saying that whatever I had learned in the industry over the past 15 years when I spent with ICICI Bank, my relationships that we have developed, and which I'll speak about a little bit later, and the knowledge which I had got in executing helped me and go into that practice. Again, it is very important at that point in time that, I always kept on discussing with my seniors during my career on how the work needs to be done and what is my responsibility, what is the expectations that my seniors have from me. The other thing which I always keep in mind that, if I need to deliver, I need to deliver exactly, at least if I have to deliver, say, in 10 days, I would like to complete it by 9 days and deliver that faster. That always has been, my one of the criteria which I have always followed. Coming back to the relationships, and that is where, I think is very, very important for all of us, whether we are CFOs or practitioners. We normally try to keep a relationship or call up somebody or speak to someone only when we have worked with them. We keep it very, very topic focused and all. I think it's not bad idea, and I kept on doing it to call a person or meet a person. It's not possible to meet a person because today everybody is busy, everybody is tied up, everybody is working hard. So it's not a bad idea to just call up a person and talk to him without any agenda. And if possible, meet up that person. We will have to give that effort to meet that person. We meet everybody, or your friends, or your colleagues, or any, without an agenda, just to have a cup of tea with that person. That really helps. And in all my job transitions, that really has, helped me. I am very proud, and I'm not showing off, but, I'm very proud to say that at any point in time, whenever I, thought that I needed a change, there was somebody or the else who was there who was ready to, sort of offer a job for me. So the learnings from being both the side, I think when both the learnings I have implemented in both the cases. For example, I learned my US GAAP accounting from KPMG. So there was a lot of literature available. There was a lot of things to read. I read the literature even if that was not applicable to the audit that I was doing or to the consulting assignment that I was doing. I read that, and that sort of knowledge of doing it really helped me. The knowledge about RBI regulations and all those stuff, that really helped me when I was working during my tenure as an accountant with the bank. And then whatever I learned in the bank, whether it was setting up internal control framework, setting up controls, setting up processes, delivering before time, what is actually required to be delivered, that helped me when I came back to the profession in EY to actually deliver the goods. I used to look at the accounting advisory practice in EY, and the CFOs which I used to meet could directly relate to me on all these matters. So, in a nutshell, my career, though it looks this thing, the only, if I have to summarize it, I think it is all decisions that I took was at that point in time, not relying on the past, what I have done, or in the future, tried to learn as much as possible what I could do, kept my, sort of connections, relationships with people. Even today I do that. And one of my seniors again told me a particular thing, when I was becoming the executive director of a company, and that was really a good position which I needed to have. I just went to meet that person and take his blessings. He told me that never let the power of the chair get into your head. You are what you are individually. So once you're off the chair, you need to be your individual self, and a person should be, talking to you or liking you based on what you are and not the chair that you possess. So that was one thing, some teachings which I always kept in mind. Whether I am the CFO, whether I am the executive director, whether I am the chief operating officer or head of some practice, I am still the same person that I am. If I am rigid, I am rigid. If I am tough, I am tough. If I am soft, I am soft. So I've always maintained that for myself. Whatever I am, I will live that way. Even in personal life, when I go back, I live the way I am. That gives me a lot of comfort here. On the professional side, I think there's a huge area, and I was talking in the morning on a different seminar where I said today we are looking at our economy to be doubling in the next 4 to 5 years, or maybe in the next 5 to 6 years. That would mean that there's a lot of potential for us as chartered accountants to deliver, or for us as professionals to deliver. And there's a lot of scope. We need to use technology. We need to use additionally. And I think over the past so many years, I started my bank audits when even the interest calculations were being done manually. And a large part of the audit was checking the calculations of interest in cut books and tallying the sub-day books with the day books. But today that has changed, and we as professionals have embraced that technology, and we are using that technology for our betterment. Whether we talk about new technologies today, which is artificial intelligence, or we talk about digitizations, we talk about any other things, I think at that all these things are there to aid us. They will never replace, or they can never replace the human mind. They can never replace the logical thinking that ones do. Any AI software or AI system can do what data is fed into it. But, as we see, businesses are changing, things are changing, standards are changing, compliance requirements are changing. That doesn't have any historical data for an AI system to work on. So we should clearly look at what we can use in performing our various functions. And technology is something. Let me tell you, in my experience, I learned Microsoft Excel and Word from an article clerk who worked under me when I was a chartered accountant. I never knew Excel and Word. Most of the people who belong to my batch or before would have worked on something like Lotus and WordStar. And even before that on manual systems. So basically, we all learn from our juniors. And even now, there is I think our professional people can definitely, take technology into their stride and move on. No technology will stop the progress. I mean, today, I'll put it this way. Accounting was done manually. The basic work was, and an accountant in 91 to ensure that the trial balance and the balance sheets tally. To what we are now when we are talking about, data sciences, data analytics and all those stuff. Do we think that the role of the chartered accountant is reduced? Even today, if we look at the entire structure, we look at the entire data which is available, the number of accountants as compared to the number of companies is very less. And the onus, the responsibility of auditors, I think I need not emphasize the sort of responsibility that is being placed on auditors. So I think the more technology increases, the more it will help us. The more it will, aid us in becoming a better professional, in becoming a better accountant, in becoming a better auditor, and so forth and so on. So my experience till today, and I've got very senior people, on the dais with me, and I'm very sure they would share those experiences with you. But my experience is, is to clearly say, whether it is industry or whether it is practice, it really doesn't matter. It depends upon what skill sets you have. It depends upon what opportunities you have. So based on that, I followed the principle of following my gut feel, take the decision for at that moment what is good for me, instead of, looking at future kya hoga and, doing some astrological thing of saying 5 saal baad ye company kya karegi, kya nahi karegi. I really don't know. I took a decision at that point in time what was better for me, kept the basics in place, kept working hard, kept updating myself, kept learning throughout my career, And that's how the entire thing spanned out. And today it is where I am. And I'm very sure all of you have different stories, all of you have different ways of success. My other people on the dais will have their own stories to say. But for me, I still follow what my father told me many years back is work as hard as possible and be honest to the core. These are the two principles which I would want all my juniors to follow, my sons to follow when they do it, and stay in the present. And as far as work life is concerned, I would still say first make life and then balance. I think that is the motto of the day. There is no exception to hard work, and it is the hard work that will bring success to you, whether small, big, whether how you sort of monitor that in the terms of money is insignificant, but yes, you will be happy at the end of the day following these principles. So I think I have completed my time. So thank you so much for listening to me. Thanks a lot.
Very pleasant good evening, my beloved colleagues in the profession and other ladies and gentlemen. At the outset, I must congratulate the Bombay Chartered Accountants Society for marking this 75 years of journey with a milestone event, a mega conference of this magnitude. Hats off to the President, C.A. Chirag Doshi and his team, and all the past presidents and members who have made it a grand success. Now the topic for my discussion, or rather thought process, is CA to nation building. So just as the speakers here are sharing their own personal experience, let me also share the journey I've come through in the path of participating at the macro level to whatever little extent possible in nation building. First and foremost, it requires kind of a passion in doing what you aspire to do, be it in industry or in practice or in the public life. And what my predecessor mentioned holds good for everything: hard work and honesty. These two things are inevitable. But in public life, you cannot have the outcome at a micro level. It has to be at a macro level. The seed for that in me was sowed by my father, who was a freedom fighter, who went to jail many times during the freedom struggle. And the government also recognized him in the pensioners list, for freedom fighters pensioners list. And having seen him devote significant time of his in public matters during my childhood, as the president of the surrounding villages, the cooperative society or panchayat union, sugarcane growers association, being basically an agriculturist, and so on and so forth, and resolving disputes across the villages. So that maybe had that in me, that one should devote time, at least at some point in stage of life, for the cause of the public. So when I started my practice, I took up teaching as a hobby, and besides teaching, I was also visiting branches and very many centers for sharing what little knowledge I knew. And I came to hear about many of the issues that are facing the students, members, and also the branches. And that gave me the insight as to why not I go to the Central Council to serve the profession. So that was the first inclination that I developed. So at the age of 44, I got elected to the Central Council and went to serve 3 years, and again repeat another 3 years. So 6 years of council membership gave me an insight into the public life so far as the profession was concerned. And I slowly drifted away from the practice, gave it to my partners to manage. And at the age of 50, when I completed the role of presidentship of ICI and returned back, I had to take an important decision whether I'm going to continue devoting time to the macro level matters in public or come back to the professional endeavors. But let me also mention that during those 6 years of council membership and last 5th year as vice president and 6th year as president, I literally foregone everything around me in my personal life, because I told my partners and family that you just cannot expect me to be here. I mean, just forget about me for 730 days, because as vice president, I would like to give my best to the profession. So when that happened, as president of ICA in 2006-07, I developed a vision, 10-point program, starting with economic development of the nation, what the profession could do. On social development, what the profession could do. And side by side, brand building, all those things, and student related, industry members related, practice members related, like that 10 points mandate. And as I worked towards that and laid down office and came back, I never knew that work has left a mark of certain amount of goodwill and reputation unknown to me in certain quarters. This was a realization much later. But I am just parking it for your assimilation as to how things happen in public life. Because having come from a village, agricultural family, and new to the place where I settled down, Chennai, no godfather anywhere, and unknown to seek any favors from anyone all through my life, never, so even if a minister or VIP sits next to me in the flight for 3 hours, I would not even say hello to him, because basically of that nature. And even if he picks up the conversation, that relationship will end as we depart from there. I never had that habit or inclination of continuing the relationship. And with that kind of a thing, everything happened by invitation, including the Padma Shri. It was only by invitation. How it happened is what I am going to narrate to you in public life. So when at the age of 50, I decided that henceforth I will not be meeting any client or executing any work. But I'll continue as a mentor to the firm, and I'll be a non-billable partner. So with that understanding, all my partners geared up. The next in command became the managing partner, then chief executive partner, so on and so forth. And the firm went on achieving whatever it wanted, devoid of my direct involvement. I was there only to do counseling, motivation for the younger generation, student, trainees, and examinees, so on and so forth. That was the limited role. And of course, the moral support to the partners and the managers. So with that kind of a journey being clear, when this decision was taken, I did not know what opportunities are going to come for serving the nation. 6 months later, I received a call from Reserve Bank of India when Dr. Y.V. Reddy was the governor and Leeladhar was the deputy governor, saying we have a problem with Sahara India Finance Corporation. Supreme Court has permitted us to nominate certain directors, so would you be interested? So I accepted that invitation, went in, and actually when you enter into certain types of organizations, more than your competence, your integrity is often tested. Because the promoters, the management will have their own ways of, pulling you to their side or attempting to make you to compromise, so on and so forth. So, but we stood firm. I mean, myself and Housing Sinor, who was ICICI Bank chairman, we were together there in the journey, and we stood firm to the role and responsibilities we were given, and we ensured the protection of the public deposits of 21,000 crores of public deposits, while the net owned funds were just 700 crores. So through the Reserve Bank mechanism, we could resolve the Sahara India Finance Corporation major issues. But as this was going on in progress, the Satyam confession happened by the promoter on 7th of January 2009. And this is where you may have to recall what I mentioned. As whatever little good work I did at the macro level as the president of the ICA, maybe that reflected upon the choice of the 6 directors. So while they chose the other 5 for different reasons, like Deepak Parekh, eminent banker, Tarun Das, as industry mentor of CII, and Kiran Karnik, the NASCOM past president, IT industry, known personality, Achyudan, a legal expert, both company law tribunal and the SEBI ex-member and all that. And LIC wanted a nominee, therefore Mainak. So the 5 were selected due to different strategic reasons. When it came to finance, so they zeroed in on me and the invite was sent. And I readily accepted because of 2 reasons. One is, all said and done, whether we like it or not, Satyam is bound to tarnish the image of the profession because of such a magnitude of fraud, what the auditors were doing. This is going to be the first question. So let me make use of the same opportunity to, if possible, to turn around and revive and contribute and restore what little reputation I could contribute to the goodwill of the profession. So that was the first thing. And the second thing was, of course, like my father as a freedom fighter contributed something to the nation. And here it is the call of the nation to save the reputation and image and goodwill of India in the eyes of the investor public, international investors. So why not, at whatever risk it takes, plunge into it and do my best. So that was the second reason. So with these, readily agreed and went in. Actually, Satyam was a peculiar case. The magnitude of the fraud was first of its kind in India. As students of accountancy, we used to jokingly debate whether accountancy is an art or a science. But in Satyam, I realized it could be a fiction. And because the figures were manipulated and fudged for over a period of 6 years, 6 long years, and 5,000 crores of fixed deposits were non-existent. And it was a cycle of fictitious things, one after the other, including the tax return, so on and so forth. Claiming tax credits, everything, there was an element of fudging or manipulation. Now coming to, that journey, when we were, all the 6 nominated directors decided to meet on a weekly basis because it was a crisis management. It was not a usual thing. So weekly board meetings, then we had to zero in on a person who will stay 24/7 to implement the decisions taken by the board, strategy devised by the board. So I offered myself to be there 24/7. Again, what came to my rescue was when 2 years I could live in Delhi as vice president, president of ICA and touring on behalf of the profession. Devoting similar time for Satyam for few months was not at all challenging. So I could readily accept and do it. And when that was happening, in the initial board meetings, when I chaired one of the board meetings, we used to chair the board meetings in turns. So when I chaired the board meeting, and the responsibility was on the chairperson to brief the media after the board meeting, subject to confidentiality. So I was interacting with the media, and one of the media persons asked me a question. Manoharan, you are all temporary directors nominated by the government. Satyam is a sinking ship. So what is that you can do as temporary directors? So that emphasis on the word temporary was resounding. So with all humility at my command, I responded to him and said, we are all temporary in this world, but we can build institutions which are permanent in this world. We can resurrect organizations which will have eternal existence. We are mortals, but institutions need not be. Principles and values need not be. They can have everlasting utility for the generations to follow, centuries to come. I think it is in the same context, I salute all the past presidents of Bombay Chartered Accountants Society for establishing this institution, which is going to last with eternity and excellence. See, generally, BCS has a culture of organizing events with meticulous planning, professional execution, time management, so on and so forth. I was wondering, for the first time when they are organizing a mega conference of this nature, which is befitting the 75 years of journey, whether all those things can also be ensured or adhered to. Hats off to you. Even at this instance, you are following it and monitoring the time and adhering to the schedules and professionally executing it. So that journey of Satyam was a revelation, but that gave an immense opportunity as to how a chartered accountant grilled and trained in the articleship training and in the practice handling different client organizations and also getting the exposure and the public life as the council member, president and all, can play the role as an entrepreneur also, because when I was nominated by the government nominated board that 24/7 you be here and ensure the implementation of our strategy. Literally, I was doing everything which Ramalinga Raju would have done except the fraud. So that is how I was interacting with the human resource management and dispersing salaries across the globe. Monthly salary disbursement was 500 crores. And US was fortnightly, rest of the world was monthly. So all that actually it was challenging, and I was not knowing whether at any given point of time what I was consuming, whether it was a breakfast or a dinner or lunch, because 66 countries, locations, different time zones, customers' calls used to come at odd hours, and therefore night, day differentiation was all that not significant or unknown. So, but finally, thanks to the, the legendary personalities whom government nominated on the board and the human resource talent, the premium talent which Satyam had, who put their, in fact, many of them wanted to resign and go, but we only told them one thing: you are what you are because of Satyam. We are all strangers. We want to revive and turn around Satyam. Why don't you give us helping hand and let us resurrect Satyam? Few months down the line, when it happens, we can celebrate. Thereafter, you can migrate anywhere you want, so that you will not feel guilty that you deserted the company when it wanted you the most. That gratitude, sense of gratitude, when we provoked in them, they stood by us. They put their heart and soul, and then the task became much easier. Even the customers who wanted to terminate the contracts, we said, you are free to migrate to alternative service provider, but don't do it behind our back. Wait and watch for few weeks. If things are going okay, you again wait and watch for few more weeks. But if it is not going according to your desire, tell us, we will enable you to migrate. Even if the competitor doesn't have the employees bandwidth to execute your project, we will rebadge our employees on their payroll or your payroll so that your project is not disturbed. So this transparent talk helped us to hold on to the customers also, and they were also willing to wait. On one condition: every week there should be a follow-up call. And when the follow-up call used to happen, after answering all their questions, I used to ask them only one question: how is the project delivery? How is the on-site service delivery by the Satyamites? All the customers unanimously told us, before the scam, it was good. Now it is the best. So, which implied that the employees have taken our message to them so seriously and realized that it is a do or die situation. I'm narrating this because in any organization of yours or anywhere, human resource can make wonders happen. if they put their heart and soul to it. How to motivate and get the best out of them, it all depends. That is where the leadership lies. So Satyam positively, proved to be a success turnaround story within 100 days, and Mahendra took over. So that journey was completed, and on 25th of January, one day before the Republic Day in 2010, I got a call from Home Ministry saying that tomorrow we are going to release the names of Padma Shri awardees, so your name is in that. So I was surprised, I was taken by surprise, and I asked the Home Ministry after some time as to how, because there should be some nomination coming from some source or anything, how is the name selected? Then they verified and told me 2 days later that my other colleagues, government nominated colleagues of mine in the Satyam board recommended my name without my knowledge, that for whatever I contributed, I should be given. So that is how it has come. So it was greatness. Here I would like to say one thing. When I took up to serve Satyam 24/7, Deepak Parekh said, the old-time director position cannot remain vacant as per SEC regulations of US. Therefore, we will put your name. Anyway, you are going to be here 24/7. We'll put your name as old-time director. I said I need some time to sleep over that thought, and tomorrow I'll tell you. And next day I told them, I don't want that designation. I'll do the job, but without designation. Because I thought if that designation comes, my privacy, my confidentiality, my identity will be exposed. So I never wanted that. Media chasing me, all those things. Then Tarun Das said, if you are doing what you are doing without designation, nobody will know what you have done. I said, sir, I am not doing anything for anybody to know. I am doing it for my profession, my nation, and my satisfaction. So why should anybody know? So he patted on me and smiled at me, endorsing maybe my thought process. But believe it or not, 1 year later, he only was instrumental in making the world to know about my contribution, because he was the one who took lead in nominating my name for Padma Shri and getting the signatures of other directors. So the reason why I'm saying to youngsters is, do your duty without expecting anything in return, but recognition will come as and when it has to come for what you are meritorious. So that patience is required in public life. Then after this, there was a gap. I was on the board of Tech Mahindra because Satya merged with Tech Mahindra. When Deepak Parekh exited from Mahindra and Mahindra, Anand Mahindra invited me to join the parent board. I liked the value system of Mahindra Group, therefore I accepted and continued. Later, the new government came in 2014. They came out with a lot of reforms in the banking sector, and the designation of CMD in the public sector banks got split. So CEO and MD and CEO was the designation given to the hierarchy, those who come by promotion, appointment and all that from the banking hierarchy. And the chairman was considered as non-executive chairman to be brought from outside for governance oversight. So top 5 banks underwent this reform, and 5 names were selected. So it is part of that, again, maybe, based on that memory lane of what good work or contribution was done, my profile got picked up, and Canara Bank, I was nominated as the chairman of Canara Bank for 3 years term. Again, another thing I would like to share with you is, in public sector, as sensitive as banking sector, within 3 months of appointment, you will get all kinds of calls, pressures, because people will not know the difference between an MD and a chairman, non-executive chairman. They'll think chairman has all the powers under this world to do anything he wants in a bank. And irrespective of whether you have or not, they think they can influence you also. That is where in public life you have to function within that Lakshman Rekha. You never to breach that the jurisdiction conferred upon you, because there will be your own conscience. You should draw boundaries within which you are going to operate and never, violate that. So do's and don'ts, I strictly adhere to it. I became a facilitator for the management to take the bank to the next level, never an hindrance. That is another thing, because I can frankly share here, it is possible that government nominees on the board, RBI nominees on the board may, because of their own compulsions or positions, might be rigid in the way in which the decisions are taken. But as non-executive chairman, you have the ability to carry both the management and the nominees of government and Reserve Bank and ensure what is in the best interest of the institution, the decision to be taken at the earliest without delay or deferment. And generally they were falling in line. That is where two rules one has to follow. One, so long as you have no personal interest, then you have nothing to fear. And second thing, so long as you are deciding everything in the best interest of the institution for which you are serving, then again you need not be worried about anything. Nothing can go wrong. So long as the documentation is proper and you are adhering to the norms, the fearless, without fear or favor taking decision is always being admired and applauded in public life. So that is what is another lesson that I've learned. And at the end of 3 years, I got extended for 2 more years. And after completion of 5 years, a second time a big decision had to be taken by me, because I never knew that corporate world keeps watching on who exits from which position, from which institution, but it is closely being monitored by many of the leading corporates. So within a few days of my completing the tenure of 5th year in Canara Bank, many invitations came from top corporates in India to join their board through common friends. That was the time I had to take a decision whether am I going to accept or am I going to decline. Having quit practice, active practice at the age of 50, to serve the nation or to contribute my time in public life, if I accept all the invitations that come, then I'll be defeating that objective basically. So I took another important decision. I will not accept the Mahindra Group, where I am already there because of Satyam connection. I will not accept any other board position unless it comes through Government of India or Reserve Bank of India, so that I will be having the satisfaction of serving through those positions or responsibility which they gave me. Not knowing what is going to come, I took that decision. So August, I exited Canara Bank in 2020, pandemic period, lockdown period. And in November 2020, RBI Deputy Governor again called me and said, Governor wants you to become the administrator for Lakshmi Vilas Bank, which is in difficulties. We are dissolving the existing board of Lakshmi Vilas Bank. So on 17th November 2020, I became the administrator, and they put the bank on moratorium so that depositors cannot withdraw more than 25,000 in a month. And emergency 5 lakhs because of COVID operations and all that. So I was really worried, because Lakshmi Vilas Bank was known for having many salary accounts, institutional accounts, small and medium enterprises accounts in deeper Tamil Nadu and all that. So they gave 3 months time, but I was very keen on completing it at the earliest. So on 27th of November, within 10 days, we merged it with the DBS Bank, the Indian limb of the Singapore Bank, and handed over management, so that moratorium was lifted before 1st of December, when generally the monthly drawings and payments transactions happen. So without any loss, anything to the depositors, this was smoothly transited. Then came the IDBI chairman invitation and NAFID, you know, National Bank for Financing Infrastructure and Development, 100% owned by government with 1 lakh crores of capital, where we are now, you know, looking at funding the entire mega infrastructure projects across the country. All the roads, power, Vande Bharat trains, all those initiatives are getting support. So that is in progress. And also the Reserve Bank of India External Standing Advisory Committee. So these are all some of the positions that has come and which I am contributing. In addition to the virtues which were mentioned, let me add on one or two more. You know, in terms of public life, nation building, chartered accountants certainly can play a vital role. In whatever you are doing already, if you have the macro level approach, you are going to contribute to nation building. But if you want to do it more emphatically, you know, what is, you know, besides this sincerity, commitment, competency, acceptability to the environment as a whole, and integrity, independence, not succumbing to any pressure, all those things are inevitable. At the same time, humility is a must, because I've seen in my own eyes good names being discussed upon and then not finally picked up because of, you know, incompatibility. Lack of compatibility. And lack of compatibility comes when there is arrogance or ego clash, so on and so forth. So in public life, if humility is there, you know, I always say, with ego, you are gone. Without it, you can go on achieving what you want to achieve. So that humility is always required. Now, having narrated this journey, I'm enjoying serving to whatever extent possible in the nation building exercise. But towards the end, what I would like to say is, see, a life by itself has no meaning. Life is only an opportunity for us to give it a meaning. How best we can give it a meaning depends on what purpose drives our life. How best we can contribute to those who are around us. First 25 years or so we learn, next 35 years or so we earn. But life becomes more meaningful when we share what we have learned and what we have earned to those who are in need of it. So we need to keep passing on what we know to the next generation and make them, empower them also, so that they will also excel. And when Dalai Lama was asked, what wonders you about humanity? He said, man himself is a wonder, because first half of his life, he sacrifices his health to earn money. Next half of his life, he sacrifices the money earned to recuperate his wealth, his health which was lost. He is so anxious about the future, he does not enjoy the present. With the result, he neither lives in the present nor in the future. He lives as if he is never going to die, but ultimately dies without actually living the life. Let us not belong to that category. Let us learn to live the life, every moment of this life, with good health and happiness. Nothing achieved is worth achieving at the cost of your health and happiness. That is the message I would like to leave for your assimilation. And India is going to become one of the powerful economies, and it cannot achieve that status without contribution from chartered accountants, without contribution from renowned institutions like Bombay Chartered Accountant Society. So I wish you all a happy journey in this nation building in all your respective ways. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks firstly to the BCA for giving me this opportunity. This is a great privilege to be here amidst all of you. It's also a privilege that I am sharing the dais with two luminaries, and we had such a fantastic, inspiring session by Mr. Manoharan. So it's a challenge for me to, on the back of that inspiring address, to speak about, as he rightly said, something from macro. I am taking it back to the micro area of my own transition. Uh, so let me give it an attempt. I have a presentation. Another challenge is I am told that I am the only guy in over the last 3 days to make a presentation. But as you know, I used to be in employment, and now for the last 10 years I have been on my own as a consultant and an independent professional. And consultants compulsively make presentations. So I hope you will pardon me for making a presentation on this subject. I have I'll speak probably maybe about 20-25 minutes, and that would be it. So I'm going to cover four aspects in the presentation. My own transition, what were the key success factors, my insights, and when I look back, how do I see whatever decisions that I took. So why, what and how of the transition? I think each one of us has an individual story, and we heard two very interesting stories. I would also have a story of my own transition and my own life, and each of you would also have a similar story. And I think there are 3 C's which are important. First is that we have a choice about every step that each one of us takes. And we heard from both Charanjit as well as Mr. Manoharan about what prompted them to take certain decisions. Those decisions are invariably about the chances that are available to us, the choices that we make, and the change that we bring about using those opportunities to change our story, our life. And we saw from Mr. Manoharan's address how he has been able to completely change his profile from something which, as he called rightly, micro to something which is macro and which is helping the nation building. So I'll try and cover my story, and I hope it becomes some kind of material for some of you who are interested in making such a change in their story. My transition is that very broadly speaking, and as a chartered accountant, I have to clarify that I'm rounding off the numbers. For roughly 3 decades, I was a professional employed in the corporate sector. And for the last decade, last 10 years, I have been on my own as an independent professional. My practice, as one may call it, consists of 2 broad streams. I do consulting work in both the business space as also the social space. And I am on several boards as an independent director, where I predominantly specialize in the audit committee role. And some of the names which I can take is I chair the audit committee at Asian Paints, also at Nykaa, and also at Hexaware. And I'm a member of the board at Mahindra Finance. So in a way, Mr. Manoharan and I work as directors in the same group. The key point is that the transition involved leaving employment and moving to an entrepreneurial role. So in a way, it's also a transition at a mindset level from an employee to an entrepreneurial role. What triggered the transition? And over the last 10 years, I have answered this question in many conversations or dialogues. The transition, actually, it's not like what they show in movies, that I was sitting in my room looking outside the window and a thought came to my mind and I suddenly decided that from tomorrow I will do something different. It doesn't happen like that in real life. It's good story for a movie, but it happens over a period of time. And I received the trigger in my own mind sometime in, say, 2010, and it was actually 2014, 10 years ago, that I left corporate employment and went on my own. There were many individual factors for that. I won't bore you with those, but there were things which made me think about it. Each one of you who is in employment would have similar triggers. You will need to pick up what those triggers are, and then accordingly, the key decision which I took, I think as Charanjit mentioned, he mentioned about the decisions were taken at that point in time based on then circumstances. In my case, I took a much more longer term decision, and that decision was that I will not retire from working. Basically, I was maybe a bit arrogant in saying that my retirement will happen at the hands of the Almighty only. This is the thought that I developed. And towards that, it is very obvious that if you want to work forever, so to say, it's unlikely that anybody will employ you for life. So you will have to employ yourself for life, and that's the thought which I developed. And I realized that there will be certain areas where I can be on my own, and that predominantly became the driver. As I mentioned, the trigger doesn't have to be dramatic. It has to be something which comes from within. But if you are in touch with yourself, as they say, if you are self-aware, you will realize that at some point the trigger will come. I feel that life is going to be not so simplistic for the coming generations. There will be several careers in a single life, and I will try and cover that in my subsequent slides. So what are the changes that happen when one, from an employee status, one becomes an entrepreneur? I think several things happen. First of all, you do not have a boss, so to say, but you have your customers, and who are actually worse bosses than your employer bosses. Because when you start handling your customers, you realize that it's a straight kind of a commercial contract, and a boss can give you so many leeways, but your customers may or may not. So that's the big shift that occurs. From being an employee, you become an employer, and you are sitting on the opposite side of the table, so to say. That's also another big shift. One of the things which most people who from employment have turned to entrepreneurship, they will tell you, and I am included in that, is that your monthly salary check hitting the bank account, that stops. And it may sound a very clerical kind of observation, but in reality, over several, like in my case, for 3 decades, I was used to a certain monetary cash flow into my bank account every month. When that stops, and then you have to figure out how you will earn. I was in a comfortable state of it, so I was not in a difficulty or anything, but that regularity of income goes away. And for most employees, you end up following a certain routine for a day. That routine goes for a toss when you are an entrepreneur, because you're basically working 24/7. So a lot of changes happen in your personal life, and your life, so to say, changes. The transition actually leads you to do so many different things which as an employee you are really not used to. For example, revenue generation. Most of chartered accountants who are in employment, they would not be worried about how your company generates revenue. They would be involved with it, but they are not implicated into that. When you are on your own, you start realizing that you have to earn your own income every month. You have to manage your own finances of the business, which also is not an easy thing. You have to go and develop your business. For most employees, excepting those who may have been in the sales function, it's very difficult to go out, as they say, carry a briefcase, go to an office, make a sales call, sell yourself, tell good things about yourself, because as humble chartered accountants, we are always taught to never market ourselves. So one of the big shifts that happens is that you have to start figuring out why your customers should select you. So that's a big shift. You have to also look at positioning yourself. Some kind of branding happens. Why would people select you for an assignment and so on? So those are the new challenges. Typical employment doesn't gear you up for this. So for any of those who would have some romantic ideas about being an entrepreneur, please keep in mind that these so many shifts that occur. And as I mentioned over there, it's quite like moving out of your parents' house and setting up a house of your own. So right from who will keep the dustbin out every morning, you have to think about everything about that house. So all those shifts that they do take place. The need for personal change is very high, and the chart that I have shown over there is typically like a how to manage a change chart. So you start very enthusiastically, you may get into chaos or some kind of a mental disappointment, but you overcome that. if you have the commitment from inside, then you automatically handle. There are two factors over here, I would say. One is that you have to learn to cope with uncertainty, because especially after COVID, the uncertainty in public life or business life has gone up dramatically. The second is, when you are on your own, you have to play multiple roles. In a corporate life, you are used to a certain corporate infrastructure. So you want to get things done, you can always tell somebody who is reporting to you, and that thing will be done. When you are on your own, it's unlikely that you will have a large staff, and therefore, you will have to learn to be the president as also the peon. And I think at the emotional, mental level, there is some kind of a adjustment that one has to do for that. This is an important point. It may sound trivial, but when you are sitting in your own office on your own, you realize that in your employment, you had so many facilities at your disposal which are not there with you right now. What are the key success factors in the transition? And I have listed them out. The first big one is that you have to be prepared in some way. Now, this is some kind of a conundrum that you typically take a decision based on an instinct, but if you are not prepared, that instinct is not likely to succeed. So what do I mean by preparedness? You need to be clear about what kind of a practice model you will have. What is it that you will be actually selling? What kind of a service you will be selling? It's very difficult for us to visualize, so a kind of a visualization exercise helps. That imagine that you are a customer, and what would you end up buying from someone like me? Second question would be, what kind of capital do you have? And I'm not meaning just financial capital. Also, you will have a reputation capital, you will have a network, you will have some kind of an external presence. And typically, the key question is whether your own brand, the individual brand, has any significance beyond your employer's brand. I also struggled with that. My last employment was with Marico, and for a long while I was known as Milind Sarwate of Marico. Of course, that is useful, but at some point in time, I have to be on my own and not just an ex-employee of a company. But that stage happens. If you continuously offer value to your customers, you get to be recognized as an independent professional on your own. The other big mental frame change is that from an employee, when you become an entrepreneur, the need for you to earn your own credentials, that goes up. And much depends upon how did you prepare during your employment. So that's why I'm saying that the trigger for moving from employment to entrepreneurship, it cannot be a short-term trigger. It cannot be that you had a fight with your boss and very dramatically you told him that I'm quitting from tomorrow and I'll set up my own shop. Aisa nahi hota hai. In real life, you need to be much more sensible and prepared for that. There is a concept of entrepreneurship, and while I was employed itself, I had studied this concept, and in a way I had fallen in love with that. So entrepreneurs internal to a company. So even when you are an employee, you can be on your own in your mindset. And fortunately, I worked with a very evolved promoter, Mr. Harsh Mariwala, who is the promoter of Marico. And I could get hugely empowered, and I could be on my own, and I could have the emotional ownership of that company in my own mind. And it helped me to be entrepreneurial. So you don't always wait for instructions, you do things on your own. You take the ownership of certain complicated projects. You are able to then take shit when sometimes you may not be involved also. You tend to become much more like an owner. And I think when you are an entrepreneur, it makes it easy for you to go out and show your entrepreneurial qualities. The changes in mindset, as I mentioned, is that an employee typically waits for instructions, an entrepreneur would go out and make things happen on his own. It is not as black and white as I have mentioned on the slide. In reality, you will find shades of gray in each of these. The other big shifts that happen is that from a large scale engagement that you had with a large company, you come down to a smaller scale engagement. And I also went through that because Marico was a fairly large company, and being a 3-4 member team in my own office. I was looking at something which is much more small scale. You have corporate values typically in any company that you work with, but from there you migrate to individual values, and really speaking, whatever you believe in individually, that comes into play. It's very important for you to have some clarity about what are the things that you want to happen in your organization and what are the things that you don't want to happen. The other perspective which changed, especially in my case, is that when I took up several non-executive directorships, I had to always grapple with the memories of my executive role, where I would make things happen on my own, to a non-executive role, where as a board member, you are not really in charge of action, you are only in charge of advice. So that challenge also happens on occasions. Mindset, as I mentioned, is a very crucial indicator of whether you will succeed. You need to have clarity on what are you passionate about, because as they say, if you are passionate about something, you will go out and make things happen. So automatically understanding what drives you is very critical. I think being self-aware is one of the biggest indicators of success. One of the biggest realizations I have had is that I have come to know of myself much more when I was on my own rather than in an employment. Because in a team, your strengths get highlighted, your weaknesses are covered by your colleagues. When you're on your own, you end up revealing yourself to your own mind. Resilience is something which I have realized is very, very important. As they say, risk management includes resilience, because resilience is the countermeasure to any risk manifesting. Actually, when you sit down and envision your future, you will realize what kind of risks that would come up. And there are 3 kinds of risks which I have elaborated a little bit in the coming slides. The first risk is that you will need to be resilient professionally. It is quite likely that you will go out to the market offering certain of your expertise, but it is not necessary that that expertise alone will get all the customer going for it. So you will have to change your offerings from time to time. And this is something which employees are not used to, because they come in with a certain expertise and usually the organization deploys only that expertise. Automatically, when you are on your own, you will have to figure out what all different things can you offer. And there are newer skills which keep coming. For example, as I mentioned in the last paragraph, new skills have emerged in the past, say, 5-7 years. Digital savviness is very critical. AI is the latest buzzword in this space. Even something which is now very common to all of us is the ability to work from anywhere. 10 years ago, when I started my own practice, it was accepted that you will work from your office. Occasionally, you may work from your home, but by and large, you will work from your office. But now the entire configuration has changed, and you will need to work from anywhere. And that, I think, is a very critical part of continuously unlearning the past and learning new things. Many times things may not work out the way you wanted. For example, in my case, I largely do 2 broad streams. I do consulting work, and I am as an independent director on several boards. What I realized during COVID is that a large part of my consulting work came down because the one-on-one personal in-person touch that went down. So I had to do some kind of a pivoting, and I had to take up little more board memberships to compensate for whatever I would lose because my consulting revenue would go down. So this kind of pivoting one has to do repeatedly. In fact, one of the buzzwords which has come during COVID is pivoting, and each one of us has to be ready to change course as you go along. Financial resilience is also important. Not only that the fact that the regular salary check stops hitting your account, you will have to figure out what kind of countermeasures you need to take when revenue goes down or up in some of your segments. In employment, you have that clarity that you will get certain perquisites, certain corporate infrastructure would be available. One has to take a call individually as to whether you will replicate the corporate infrastructure in your office, or you will figure out how to go about it on your own. In my case, I decided that I need to have an office of my own. So actually, I went out and bought an office. It was a kind of an individual risk, but I said it is very critical for me. So most of the times, people realize that uh, they are dependent on certain corporate infrastructures, and you will have to replicate those in your own space. Emotional resilience is also very critical. Uh, when you are on your own, you are in some way alone because you do not necessarily have an HR department to look after your own grievances. So you will have to figure out what is going to be your advisory board, who are the people who are going to help out, who are the people with whom you will bounce off your own challenges and your own struggles. Uh, Being prepared emotionally is critical. Many times you visualize that you will be on your own as an entrepreneur, but you may not necessarily estimate the kind of emotional strength that is needed. Surprises will come on the way. It's very rare to imagine that you start off on your own and you realize that everything goes hunky-dory. So things will keep changing around you. At that time, you must have the readiness to change. I feel as an entrepreneur, one has to be far less rigid than what one is as compared to when you are an employee. Doesn't mean that you compromise your values, but one has to show the right degree of flexibility. Networking is critical. I'm stating the obvious. However, one has to realize that you may have built a very large network during your employment. Many of them may be relationships with your chair and not you individually. I think Charanjit also mentioned that never overvalue the chair on which you are sitting. So when you come out of a corporate employment, you realize that people were cultivating you only because you are holding that chair. When you are on your own, those people may not be there with you. So you have to look for relationships which are more based on an in-person, and I experienced that quite a lot. But fortunately, I had built my own individual relationships, and I have been able to get a lot of work sheerly because I knew people and they knew what I was capable of. So personal networks, your referral networks, those help a lot. I mentioned about resilience. So resilience is very critical. In fact, if you have a long-term vision, you have to be resilient. In a business or in entrepreneurship, there will be ups and downs. You have to always focus and hope and be positive that things will work out. Luck does play a big role. In my case, for example, while I was in employment itself, I was able to get non-executive directorships, and as a result of that, while I set up my own shop 10 years ago, I have been on boards now almost for 20 years. So I was lucky enough to get that opportunity of being on boards even when I was an employee. There is a concept of serendipity that you are not really searching for something, but it happens. So I believe a lot in that, but one has to be prepared to take an opportunity when that opportunity comes, and that is the manifestation of luck. Quickly to cover my insights before my time runs out. I think this is an important realization that I have had, that life expectancy is going up. People are easily living up to the age of 80, 85. However, corporate employment expectancy has gone down, and around the age of 50, there are younger people who are clamoring for more senior roles. So you will have a peculiar situation where employment ends when you are 50, but you will still live up to age of 80. And then what do you do with this large plank of time of almost 20, 30 years? What will you do? So my submission is that as life progresses, you will realize that you will definitely have to think of what to do in my second career and maybe what to do in your third career and so on. I think this is an important aspect, and people, many times I feel that we end up looking at our earlier generation and expecting that we'll retire and then we'll have a peaceful time. My learning is that there's nothing like a peaceful time. If you want to manage your own life, you have to figure out at what stage you will move into a second career and third career, etc. What could make you delay your decision is also important. Many times you will end up procrastinating, you will want everything to be perfect. There's nothing like that. You'll have to find your way through if you are interested in moving into entrepreneurship from employment. You have to start planning early. You have to think about your own life. Many times, and this is true for many chartered accountants, that you may plan somebody else's finances and somebody else's strategy really well. But when it comes to your own finances or your own life, I think we tend to ignore that, and I think we should not make that mistake and try and look at our own careers far more closely. I listed out all these success factors, so focusing on those is also one of the insights. And there has to be some kind of a formality in our own mind as to what are we going to do about our own self. Multi-skilling is another thing which I realized. For example, during my corporate employment, I worked in finance for a very long period of time, but I also had the opportunity to work in HR for about 5 years. So my experience as a CFO and as a CHRO, that has come in very handy during my consulting assignments and also my board memberships. And learning multiple skills is one way of succeeding. It's very difficult for us to imagine that somebody who has had only a single company career or only a single expertise area will do well in life. I think life is changing so rapidly, expectations are changing so rapidly, that learning different things is going to be critical. There is a concept of ikigai which says that where there is a confluence of 4 things, your passion, your capabilities, from where you draw your earnings and what the society or the people around you need. The confluence of these 4 things could give you your right career, the career which gives you the highest satisfaction in every term. My submission is that the ikigai concept is not a static concept for life. It will keep shifting. For maybe 3 decades, my ikigai concept lay in employment. Now it is in my own career, and maybe, I don't know, after 10 years, I may be doing something else completely different. The other learning I have is that in life you need money and you also want money. But there comes a point where you don't need more money necessarily for your basic needs or for your core needs. After that, you may want to shift, take a bit of a risk, and move into a place where you want to earn money, but you need not. I think that is where you experience the highest degree of independence about careers. When I look back, I find that my journey from shifting from an employment to entrepreneurship, it has neither been easy nor it has been hard. It has been a very enjoyable experience. In fact, this entire exercise of preparing for this session, it enabled me to look back at my own self, and I realized that spending 10 years on my own in an entrepreneurial capacity is something which I may not have imagined, but I have been able to do it. No doubt I have been lucky in many areas, but I have also been very observant about what things are good in me and what opportunities exist. And when I look back, I'm quite happy. If I'm given a second chance to lead the same life again, I would still leave employment and take up entrepreneurship, because the independence is huge, and my original objective of never wanting to retire, that is fulfilled by this situation. Lastly, I'll end with a quote from Mark Twain. Mark Twain said that 20 years later, if you look back at your own life, you will regret not doing certain things than doing certain things. So you have to figure out, when you reject opportunities, you have to keep in mind that after 10 years, 20 years, you are going to regret that that opportunity was there, but I did not take it. So I am about a minute ahead of my time, so sorry for that. So thanks for listening, and all the best to all of you. Thank you.